because now the world's largest country by population is also exploring a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I know it sounds big, but it's happening. India right now has renewable energy capacity to replicate Bhutan's Bitcoin mining success, says a government spokesperson. But that's not it. We can see politicians in India right now are calling for a Bitcoin reserve pilots, citing that the US has embraced Bitcoin. Why don't we? But let's not forget, just recently in the past month, we've seen Vietnam, we've seen South Korea elect a pro-Bitcoin president. We've seen all sorts of countries all around the world start to scramble for a little bit of Bitcoin exposure and start looking at implementing a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And I think this is going to lead down a very interesting path when we start looking at how much Bitcoin is actually available for sale. Because right now we know Michael Saylor, he holds more Bitcoin at MicroStrategy than every other nation state combined. This is where things are going to get really interesting and things are going to get really scary, because we have India, a country with an enormous GDP, right now coming to the realization that, hang on a minute, we also need Bitcoin. And what happens when we've got a $3.6 trillion economy responding to America and saying, yeah, actually, we also need some of that Bitcoin? I think we're now kind of on the precipice of things really accelerating and going mainstream here in the not too distant future. Let's take a peep over here and have a look at the nation states that hold Bitcoin. We can see the US in that big pink box, 198,000 coins. We've got China. They're the two big leaders when it comes to nation state strategic reserves. But then we've got the UK, Ukraine, and then a couple of the other smaller countries like Bhutan, like we mentioned, North Korea, and El Salvador. And I think, again, you guys can quote this, but I think in 12 months' time, we're going to see a lot of action when it comes to nation state Bitcoin adoption. I just think this is going to accelerate, like the public corporation adoption of Bitcoin is accelerating. We can see right now, over the past 30 days, there's been 25 new entities. So these are public companies, private companies, or governments that have adopted a Bitcoin treasury strategy. This is huge. This is nearly growing at one a day, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. And speaking about not slowing down anytime soon, we can see MicroStrategy is about to hit 600,000 Bitcoin on their treasury. So again, this is just accelerating. This isn't the first rumblings we've seen out of India and them being urged to adopt a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The reason for this is because India actually had a lot of Bitcoin adoption when we look at things. So let's jump on over here. India leads in, yes, again, this is crypto adoption, but this is the second straight year that India has kind of polled very favorably in this report. 2023 and 2024, they've been one of the global leaders for adoption. Here's a better visualization of what we're looking at. I've got this little chart here. Look at the countries that are number 1, 2, and 3. India, Nigeria, and Indonesia. Again, Nigeria is suffering from huge inflation. India is suffering from something similar. And again, I think this is why we're going to slowly but surely see a big pivot from India back into Bitcoin. They're going to learn what the Nigerian government learned. Here's another study. So we got different studies, we've got different sources, but we can see, where does grassroots crypto adoption come from? India, Nigeria, and Vietnam. Again, what's interesting about Nigeria and Vietnam? Well, Nigeria tried to ban Bitcoin way back in 2021 and 2022. How did that go? Well, they've now kind of done a little bit of a backflip on that ban recently, because you cannot stop grassroots adoption. When it's accelerating like it has been recently, there is no stopping it. Okay, there is only banning yourself from Bitcoin. You can't ban your citizens from it effectively. China has learned this very clearly. Let's see who else is on that list, because China is on that list, of course. Very interesting. China is famous for their Bitcoin ban, and I do think that maybe we're going to see a little bit of a repivot from China back into Bitcoin. We showed you guys the news earlier in the week, I believe, where we showed you China's first mainland bank and ETF is now being rolled out. This is just the start of something bigger, I potentially think. So now that we're seeing a little bit of, let's call it India action, I think we could certainly be seeing some adoption continue to accelerate. Because we got South Korea, we got Vietnam. I think we're now starting to see a little bit of a trend in the, let's call it what it is, Southeast Asian Bitcoin adoption plan. And it looks like it's accelerating. Mike in the chat says, I feel things are going to get real soon. Well, I mean, things are already incredibly real. To Princess Kumar's comment, things are very real. This is live. This is certainly not a pre-recorded video. Things are very real. Let me say that. And again, things for the world, they're getting really real. The fact that we now have the second biggest economic bloc in the world openly talking about freezing your savings, I think this is now the time where we start to really have to pay attention. This really could be the time where we have to start grabbing our loved ones by the shoulders and just shaking them and say, look what they're saying. This is insane. Crossing two hurdles in one leap, there is now an urgent need to channel retail savings into European capital markets. They're openly saying the quiet parts out loud, and the timing is really interesting here. Let's not forget the digital euro. It's launching in October. This is their big white paper that Europe dropped recently. The future of money, it's coming. They're going to roll out their central bank digital currency. It's going to have expiration dates. And once you're locked in, I think it's going to be just like Hotel California. You can check in, but once you've got your CBDC token, you can't check out. That private savings is going to be turned really swiftly into EU investments, and they're going to go and do with that money what they want. That's not the scope for today's video. Obviously, you guys, again, a lot of people don't care about where their tax dollars are going. I personally do, but I just think Europe is openly saying they're going to steal your money. That's the point of today's video. They're openly saying the quiet parts out loud. And the digital euro is coming, and this is why we are all going to have to start to run for the, guess what? Escape valve. I don't know whether you guys have seen this, but I want to show you this video of the head of the ECB, Christine Lagarde, when she was asked about Bitcoin.
Speculative asset by any account. I mean, when you look at the
if I don't have audio, I apologize, but let's see whether this works. I'll just play this little snippet.
And this has to be applied and agreed upon. It's a matter that needs to be agreed at a global level, because if there is an escape, that escape will be used. So I think it needs to be if anything, it shows that global cooperation, multilateral action is absolutely needed. Whether
if there is an escape, that escape will be used. That is the direct words of Christine Lagarde, head of the European Central Bank, when asked about Bitcoin in an interview. They're very aware that Bitcoin is the escape valve that allows you to escape their efforts to channel your private savings into better investments. Again, guys, if you don't have Bitcoin, I highly encourage you guys to go and buy some Bitcoin today while you can, before they try to force you into their central bank digital currency prison. Again, if you need to buy some Bitcoin, check out the Bitcoin well down below and use a promo code Green Candle to get rewards paid in Bitcoin every time you buy Bitcoin. And then take your custody seriously. Go and buy yourself a titanium plate. Okay, these are the best things to back up your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words on. Okay, again, please do not trust Larry Fink with your Bitcoin. Do not trust these bureaucrats. Again, where is Larry Fink from? Well, he's head of the whole globalist movement over in Europe. I'm never, ever going to trust a man who is a board of director for the World Economic Forum. He's more than a contributor. He's more than a partner. He's a board of director with the World Economic Forum. Sent it out of yours truly, Europe. Okay, do not trust BlackRock's IBIT Bitcoin ETF with your savings, because I would not be surprised if they get channeled and converted into EU investments. It's going to happen. Okay, this is why, again, I'm a Bitcoin self-sovereignty, self-custody maximalist. If you don't hold your Bitcoin, you don't control your Bitcoin. It's as simple as that. That's why I tell you guys, put your Bitcoin in a hardware wallet, then back it up with these titanium plates. Okay, you guys can get 15% off anything you want to buy from Stampseed with a promo code Luke15, and that will be linked down below for anyone who wants to escape the European channeled savings plan, which I think is just, it's really scary that things are accelerating in the way that they are. But it doesn't look like it's slowing down. Why? Because let's just say this Rearm Europe plan is going to be the perfect distraction from the biggest bankruptcy around the world, which is going to be the Western default of capital markets. I want to show you guys some charts that I think is really interesting that explains a lot of the chaos that we see in the world. A lot of these narratives that are most extreme, they can all be explained when we just have a look at some simple charts, because I say everything comes down to debt. Okay, debt is absolutely everything. And I think when you understand just how indebted these European nations are, the rest of the world starts to make sense. Oh, this is the chart we're looking for. So what we're looking at here is the 2025 public debt to GDP ratios. We've got Japan, about 230%, Singapore, Eritrea. Now, what's interesting about Eritrea and their 70% debt to GDP ratio? Well, there's two countries around the world with citizenship-based taxation, America and Eritrea. Now, what is citizenship-based taxation? Well, that is a law that allows the government that you are a citizen of to tax you everywhere that you live around the world. So it doesn't matter if you're from America or Eritrea and you've been living in Europe or Australia for a decade, you still have to pay tax to the American and the Eritrean government every year. This is citizenship-based taxation. Now, the thing that's really interesting is that for a very long time, it's just been America and Eritrea. They're the only countries with this very strange, unique law and rule. But in the past 3 years, we've seen the Canadian government, the Australian government, and the French government actively try to push legislation through Parliament to replicate this law and also start taxing their citizens anywhere around the world they go. Now, again, why? Again, it's the debt. Have a look at this chart. Eritrea has the third highest public debt to GDP ratio in 2025. But then have a look at all of these other countries. We've got Greece, Italy, and then we've got France, all in the top 10 most indebted countries. So this is why we're seeing all of this talk of, openly siphoning away the citizens' savings. It's all because of that four-letter word, debt. It's as simple as that. This is why you cannot be trusting these guys with your money in the bank. Okay, I was on Simply Bitcoin yesterday and I copped a little bit of flack in the comments from people because I said, look, real estate's a dangerous investment. It's not an asset, it's a liability because you are in a partnership with the bank who is essentially controlled by the government. And think about it. If you've got half of your net worth locked up in a property or a home, your government knows exactly where your wealth is. They know how to tax it. They know how to track it. They know how to trace it. It's stationary capital. They're going to milk you. If you're a cow just sitting there in a field that's all caged off and you can't escape, they're going to take your money. Okay, in Australia, we've got $20,000 stamp duty taxes when you buy a home. We've got capital gains tax, obviously, on buying and selling homes. Then we've got property taxes, insurance taxes, land taxes, water taxes. There's all sorts of taxes attached to buying a property that people just completely disregard because, again, it's been the narrative for the past 40 years that property is the safe investment. It's just not. Okay, again, I commonly say if you got more than 5% of your net worth tied up in real estate, I think it's a shitcoin. And I think it's too much. Purely because the government is going to come and tax you for it. And, all taxation is theft. Again, people just think that you have to go and get a mortgage from a bank to go and buy a home. Again, it's not the case anymore. There's a lot of different products that you can use to actually use your Bitcoin to get a loan against and not even give up the custody of your Bitcoin. I know it sounds a little bit too good to be true, but there are many products on the market today that let you do exactly that. The product that I'm the biggest fan of is FIREFISH. They actually use multi-signature vaults that you deposit your Bitcoin into, you retain a key to, and you actually get liquidity. So you can get a loan against your Bitcoin without ever technically selling your Bitcoin. So the cool thing about FIREFISH is they also don't hold your Bitcoin. So it's a peer-to-peer Bitcoin lending platform. Highly encourage you guys learn more about it. Their co-founder, Igor, was on the Stefan Levera podcast a couple of months ago. And again, most of you guys who've been in Bitcoin for a decade, you probably know Stefan Levera. He's a hardcore Bitcoin maximalist. And if it gets, the Stefan Levera tick of approval, FIREFISH gets my tick of approval. So again, if you are looking to lend against your Bitcoin in a safe way, I recommend you check out FIREFISH. And you guys can get, I think, a 30% discount on your first transaction with them if you use a promo code Luke. So it's 4 letters, rhymes with puke, very easy to remember. Everything you need to find about any of our show partners, whether that's FIREFISH, Bitcoin Well, or Stampseed, all down below in the description. And again, I think the time is now. The bull run's going to get wild over the next 6 to 12 months. I, more than most people, understand that when the price is rallying aggressively and it's going parabolic, sometimes, looking after your self-custody or, upgrading your Bitcoin security model, it can be very easily pushed to the side when you're so concentrated on the price. So again, this is why I encourage you guys to do this now, not just because the Bitcoin bull run is coming, but the bureaucrats are coming, the globalists are coming, the EU is coming for your private savings. And I do think it's just a matter of time before they get their mittens on your cash in the bank. Obviously, that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin. They can't get your mittens on your Bitcoin if it's stored in self-custody. So with all that said, guys, I'm going to end this live stream here. I hope you have a nice Saturday. Again, the world is scary out there, but I like to think that we do have some optimistic solutions to just kind of sidestep these bureaucratic Orwellian laws that just seem to be coming our way. So as Jordy in the chat says, they are coming for your savings. And with all that said, I'll see you guys tomorrow.